Today, I want to distinguish between needs versus wants and whether to define something as a need or want, or how to decide whether you need something or you just want it. Let's all agree that we need food, shelter, and clothes. The second and third things of which my home state of Massachusetts doesn't tax, thankfully, except for the meals tax at restaurants, but that's different. Honestly, I'm not against the meals tax existing because restaurant food, with the fact that the cost of having it prepared and set up and such, is more of a luxury good than an essential. But I'm just glad that groceries don't have a sales tax here. Now, in addition to those, we also need electricity to store certain foods, and if you're a diabetic, to store insulin, which is why if the power grid failed, or if we all just decide to stop using electricity for environmental reasons, it would actually be very fatal for a lot of people because of the need to refrigerate insulin. Just something to think about. We all need our clothes to be cleaned, which it means, so the question is how you appease that need, whether you have your own washer and dryer, or if you go to a laundromat, or if you live in an apartment complex. I've heard they have laundry machines. They have dedicated laundry rooms. There are such laundry rooms at the condo that my grandparents have in Florida. So you have the need for clean clothes, but there's the question of how you get the clothes clean. You can argue having your own washer dryer is a luxury because laundromats are an option. Doing it by hand is an option. But I would argue that having your own machine to do it on your own terms is a need. But I digress. Don't be afraid to let me know in the comments if you think that if you disagree on me, if you disagree with me on having your own machine to do it on your own terms is a need or not. You could argue that's more of a want, but it is also essential to have clean clothes. The question really is how. We all need internet connection now. Yeah, I'm just going to say it. Because of how everything's set up today, it's considered a need. Oh, I forgot transportation, but we'll circle back to that in a moment. Because of the internet, you needed to apply to jobs, because the old boomer mentality of walking in with a firm handshake and asking if they're hiring, that's not going to happen anywhere today. And if you ask if they have paper applications, they are just going to direct you to apply online. So, an internet connection and a device that lets you access the internet to do all that is considered an essential. You might be able to manage with just an iPhone or an Android smartphone, with just a smartphone without a proper computer, whether PC, Mac, or anything like that. You might still have to go to a public library to print out something. The problem with just using a phone alone, though, which I've noticed, is some things won't load properly on a smartphone compared to a desktop. When I say that, I mean a desktop operating system. It would work just fine on a laptop, but you get the idea. So that puts, at the very least, a smartphone and a laptop of some kind is a need. There is some nuance in the want. So, for example, if you want the benefits of a closed ecosystem like Apple, then you're going to have to shell out extra money for an iPhone and a MacBook. You the need a smartphone and a laptop to be able to apply for work, do work, and take care of other business like filing your taxes. But if you want Apple developed operating systems and their ecosystem, you're going to have to shell out. At the very least, for needs, if you desperately need something, there are options out there. For example, I think you can spend a couple $100s on a phone that runs Android. If it gets the job done, I'm not going to shame anyone for that, but you get the idea. You can also spend like a couple $100s on a Windows laptop. That'll let you do the bare essentials, and as long as it gets the job done, again, I respect your decision. And now transportation. Yes, you need transportation for a lot of things. Sure, you can get around on public transportation to some extent, but they set everything else up in a way that requires a car, which at the time made sense, but I would argue it's kind of ableist for people who can't drive, like physically cannot. Yeah, and then it just adds on the expense of gas or maintenance, as well as the cost of buying a car. So yeah, you need some kind of budget for transportation, whether you pay for the once in a blue moon Uber like I do, or you have to invest in having a car. Now there are options like it's a want to get a nicer car, but if you can get something that gets you from point A to point B, you're good to go. I'm pretty sure that, and what was I talking about earlier? The internet would fall on a higher part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That being higher up on the pyramid because food, shelter, air, things that you would literally die without, those are the three timeless needs. And that's why they make up the base. For living in modern society, you can also add transportation and the associated costs, and the internet, and some kind of hardware to access it. What kind of hardware you use to access it? That depends. And then after that, there are just, I think those are like all the needs. More psychological needs like self-fulfillment, those fall higher up and are smaller on the pyramid. That's why it's a pyramid. You can really argue whether they're needs or wants. Like a dating relationship is a psychological need, but you're not gonna drop dead if you aren't in one. So there's that. Doing something more with your life than just existing, you can argue that's a psychological need, but you're not going to drop dead if you don't manage to do that. So there's that. Then there are also just straight up wants, some of which fall within the needs. Like, for example, I want to make these YouTube videos. I want to play video games. The YouTube videos I can and merge with my need for finding fulfillment, and I can use the very phone that I use as the need use to fulfill my I need to be able to access the internet to function in society. I can utilize that. Video games, just a straight up want. I could technically do without them, but they do fulfill a psychological need to give me something to do. They give me something to work on purely for entertainment and not for any other reason. I think you get the idea. To recap, needs: food, shelter, clothes, the ability to clean said clothes. Those are the base needs. Then additional base needs for modern society: transportation, internet. More nuanced are the self-actualization, I think it's called, where you feel you need it, but you aren't going to drop dead if you don't have it. The same as, say, if you don't have any you food, yeah, it's over if you don't have any food. Same with shelter and To a lesser extent, clothing. Yes, if you're not wearing any clothing, you're not going to just suddenly drop dead or not be able to survive. But unless you live in a nudist colony, you're going to have to put on clothes for the sake of public decency. And then there's also the fact that you need them to stay warmer in cooler environments, and in warmer environments, you still need to wear clothes that vent air properly. I remember an episode of American Dad, Stan of Arabia. There's a whole thing about Stan realizing that the clothes worn in Saudi Arabia were for reasons related to the climate. It wasn't just that, and it went completely against his assumption that they were wearing a quote dress. Stan's words, not mine. I don't remember enough of it though to say anything more about it. Just that. But yeah, I guess you know what? I have to amend what I said earlier. Or you run the higher risk of dropping dead if you don't have any clothes, because in addition to just maintaining public decency, they also provide warmth and temperature moderation. So yeah, those are the needs slash wants I wanted to talk about. Let me know in the comments down below if you think there are any needs that I missed, or how you feel about the nuance of wants and needs, where a want could be it'd still be considered a need. It's just a luxury version of it, i.e., an iPhone versus the bare minimum of a phone to be able to make calls and texts and access the internet to do things like applying for jobs. Or with luxury cars versus an old beater that technically functions and gets you from point A to point B. You let me know in the comments down below. You give this video a like, subscribe for daily videos, and I'll see you soon.